Hello again, my little conscripts, and welcome to another Mordian Glory video. In today's episode, we shall be doing something we have never done before. We're going to be doing a unit review and deep dive for Warhammer 30k, the Horus Heresy.
What?
No, all right. I know that sounds bad.
Those of you that don't know, I've been getting into Heresy in a big way recently. It is a ton of fun, and especially for an old grognard like me, really does feel like playing old Hammer that's been remastered. I've done a few battle reports and a few live streams talking about this game, and people have really responded positively to it. And one of the big things that I've had from the community, one of the big pieces of feedback is you guys want some of that classic Mordian Glory bread and butter content. You want the unit reviews and the deep dives. And it only felt right that I should do a unit review for the Imperialis Militia, as I am an Imperial Guard commander at heart, and the Militia are my boys in 30k. But also, as an infantry commander, we had to look at the Levy squads, aka the big blobs of Conscripts. And so without further ado, let's fix bayonets and charge right into this thing. Normally I like to start these unit reviews, especially if they're a 40k one, with a look at the stat line. But today we're going to be doing something a bit different. As Heresy is a new game to the channel, and I bet there's going to be quite a few people who are curious about it but don't know a huge amount about it, we're actually going to begin with the flavor. So what are the Levy squads? What are their role in the lore for the Imperialis Militia? Long story short, they are the bottom of the barrel, the absolute dregs of soldiers that the Imperium can field. These can either be hastily conscripted reserves, perhaps people who 2 weeks ago were civilians with no military experience whatsoever, who have had a las gun shoved in their hand, they've had 1 day down the range, and then they've been shipped to the front lines. Or you can have people like penal soldiers, like prisoners, who have been given a chance at redemption. Hey, if you survive this battle, we'll let you go free, but they know they're going to be sent into the absolute worst situations. Or, on the other hand, it can be abhumans, it can be mutants, it can be those in service of the War Master, but very much on the bottom rung of the ladder of chaos. And my absolute favourite part of the flavor text for these guys is the bit about the discipline collars. Essentially, these guys will go into battle, especially if they are from the penal system, with explosive collars around their necks, and if the overseers slash commissars slash prison wardens think that looking like the prisoners might be turning their guns around on the people that armed them, then without hesitation they will, shall we say, instill a permanent kind of discipline onto the poor dregs, the poor wretches. Very, very grim dark. Something that we don't see in 40k as much anymore. Just properly gnarly. And interestingly, as we'll see in a moment, this bit of flavor text actually very much does feed into the rules of the Militia Levy unit. So not only do you have the flavor, but that flavor starts getting represented on the tabletop, which is fantastic. But speaking of the rules, we should probably start getting into the nitty-gritty bit of this video. Let's have a look at the stat line. So each Levy squad consists of 1 sergeant and 19 levies. The sergeant is essentially a guardsman. We've got movement 6, we've got weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 3, strength 3, toughness 3, 1 wound, initiative 3, attacks 1, leadership 6, and a 5+ save. Now, if you're coming over from Warhammer 40k, it's important to understand that in terms of weapon skill and ballistic skill and initiative, lower is actually worse. It's not weapon skill 3+, it's weapon skill 3, and this feeds into the whole you compare your weapon skill to the enemy's weapon skill to see what you actually hit them on. Likewise, you compare your ballistic skill to the ballistic skill table, and it will tell you what you actually hit on. So ballistic skill 3 in this case means that you hit on 4s, which is like a normal guardsman. But then we get to the levies themselves, the bulk of the units, and oh my god, these guys are terrible. Movement 6 is fine, but then weapon skill 2 and ballistic skill 2, these guys can barely hit the broadside of a barn. Weapon skill 2 means that actually when you're facing off against Space Marines who've got weapon skill of 4, you actually hit them on 6s in close combat. This is a big difference from other old Hammer editions where you had to have weapon skill double +1 to hit on 6s, or if you're coming from the other side, you had to have double +1 to hit on 2s. That's changed now. So with levies having weapon skill 2, it means that they are almost useless in close combat unless they're fighting other guardsmen, at which point they're still probably hitting on, oh yeah, 5s. So weapon skill 2 is very, very low, very much limits their melee potential. Ballistic skill 2 isn't as bad because you don't have to compare that to someone else's ballistic skill, it's just what you hit on. And in Heresy, ballistic skill 2 means that you hit the enemy on 5s, which isn't that bad considering the weight of numbers these guys can have, and we'll really see you can take them in large blobs later on. Being able to just throw down buckets of dice hitting on 5s means that through sheer weight of numbers, you can actually start leveraging some good wound hits and woundage. And with alarming regularity, my levy squads have picked off a Marine or 2 pretty much every single time that they fire. It might not sound like much, but these guys are very cheap and expendable, so anyone that they take down with them on the way out is something to be remarked upon. Strength 3 and Toughness 3 is what it is. It's Guardsman profile. You're going to be wounding most Marines on 5s. They're going to be wounding you on 3s, if not 2s. You've only got 1 wound, of course. Initiative 3. Not great. You're not going to be running that fast because initiative obviously helps your run move. You don't roll a random dice. It's your movement plus initiative equals your run. So they can run around at 9 inches if you need them to. It's not too bad. Attacks 1, of course. I mean, they've just got a las gun. Leadership 5, absolutely awful. Like, just terrible. You have to roll 2d6 and roll under 5. And that's before we take into account things like combat resolution if you're losing in combat, and also take into account things like fear, which could lower your leadership even further. Levies, even with a sergeant on their own, should not be expected to hold the line or to go on the offensive against anything that is remotely capable. They are meat. You can buff them up, but in their most basic form, they are meat. Important to remember as well, speaking of them being meat, they only have a 5+ save from their flak armor, so that means even bolters, the most common weapon in the game, will be denying you an armor save. So you might be getting a cover save, but that's like a 6-up. It's assume you don't have a save on these guys and you won't go too far wrong. That covers the stat line of the levy squads, but now let's get into their weapon and war gear options. First up, and what is probably most interesting and exciting about the levy squads, is they can have a lot of additional models added to the unit. They may start off at 20 strong, but you can add up to an additional 30 models for 2 points each. That's right, you can have a squad of 50 conscripts and the total cost would be 100 points. That is an absolutely insanely cheap cost for the level of meat that you are throwing onto the table. Considering each tactical marine is 10 points, you will be at a base level outnumbering them 5-1. Each tactical marine has to kill 5 of your guys in order to break even. Although, as you'll see with the special rules, that might actually be a lot easier than it would first appear. Now, we do have a bunch of other weapon options here. We've got the Sergeant may exchange their las gun for the following: basic close combat weapon, las pistol, pistol. I wouldn't bother, just keep everyone with las guns, keep the unit simple. You may also take a Militia Vexilla. I wouldn't. This gives you +1 to your combat resolution in melee. And as we said, they're not going to be doing diddly dick in melee anyway. So this is a waste of 10 points. It is cool though from a flavor perspective, and it is cool from an aesthetic perspective. The idea of having like 50 conscripts like charging forward underneath a banner is very, very cool. So whilst you probably wouldn't take this because you expect it to like do anything, you absolutely would take this for the vibes. You can imagine, you can think of these guys as prisoners, at which point you probably wouldn't give them anything but a rattly shank and a prayer on their lips and send them forwards. But you have to remember that they're not just prisoners. They're not just the dregs. Like, they can be civilians which have been drafted, essentially, with 0 military training, but they're still, like, there trying to do their bit for whichever side that they're on, whether they're fighting for the War Master or especially, I think this vibe really, really works if you're loyalist militia, because you can think these are desperate citizens that have been hastily shoved into the front line, but there may still be a certain sense of like patriotism there, a certain sense of love for the Emperor and for the Imperium. There may be a certain esprit de corps there, and representing that on the tabletop could be as simple as spending 10 points out of a 3,000 point list to have your militia fighting under the banner of the Emperor, or fighting under the flag of the homeworld that they are fighting to protect from the War Master. So it's easy to overlook the Militia Vexilla from a rules perspective, and if you're trying to be as efficient as possible, you wouldn't take this. But from a flavor perspective, depending on what your militia levies represent, this can be a very, very cool upgrade to have. Now, the entire squad can replace their lasguns or auto rifles. By the way, stat wise, there's no difference between lasguns or auto rifles, so just take whichever ones that you want. But you can replace your ranged gun with an auto pistol or a las pistol. This does benefit you in melee, but I would never take it because, again, referring back to weapon skill 2, you're going to be hitting on 6s. It's a bad call. It's a bad call, Ripley. Militia levy squads should never be in melee. Just it should never happen. The only times you would do it is if you were running a themed or sort of memed list. So imagine if you're running like a full-blown like endless tide of traitors, and you've got the provenance. That means that you have the charge, but you get hatred. I think it's debased rabble. If you have that and you know you're going to be forced to charge forward, then yeah, you'd probably go for the basic close combat weapon and auto pistol or las pistol. But unless you're going down some sort of memey melee build or themed like psycho fanatic build, you probably will stick with the las guns and auto guns. This next one is a really cool upgrade. You can give the entire squad, as long as they're armed with las guns or auto rifles, bayonets for plus 10 points. Now, bayonets actually do something in this game. They give you plus 1 strength. So your guys would be wounding Marines on 4s, which is pretty decent. And what's kind of interesting about this is it's not like 10 points per 20 or 1 point per model. It's just 10 points per unit. So if you have a big squad of 50 of these guys, for just 10 points, you can give all 50 people in the squad bayonets. I don't think it's a great idea because, again, the weapon, I know I keep referring back to it, guys, but it's such a key part of this unit. The weapon skill's kind of trash, but it's a very, very efficient upgrade. And there are provenances which can improve your weapon skill and stuff like that if you are going into the melee build. So perhaps it's a perhaps. For me, again, it falls under a fluff upgrade, but not a bad one at all. And truth be told, if you get to the end of your list and you've got 10 points left over, and really you don't have much to spend on, you could give your force commander like a power weapon he's never going to realistically use or make any difference. You could do that, or for 10 points you could give a full squad of Levy's bayonets. It's a good flavor upgrade, and it's a good few points left over, and I actually want to have maybe some impact on the game upgrade. Next we have frag grenades. Frag grenades are good for when you're assaulting enemies who are behind cover. It helps avoid the enemy striking first, but once again it falls into, I would say, a flavor upgrade. If you're going down a melee build, you might want this so that you actually have a chance of striking before the enemy does, but even then on initiative 3 that is somewhat unlikely. Frag grenades, honestly at this point, if you start giving them frag grenades, bayonets and all that kind of stuff, I really feel like you might as well just start taking the Imperialis Militia infantry squad, which are essentially your regulars. So if you're going to start stacking loads of upgrades on them, you might as well just go for the regulars. For me, out of all of these options, the only one that I would really entertain is this one. Adding more bodies, adding more meat. Everything after that is Flavortown and Fluffville. But now it's time for us to get into the special rules. The first thing to mention is not what's here, but what's missing. Levy squads do not have the line keyword, so they are no good at scoring in objective-based missions. That does make sense from both a fluff and a balance perspective. Would an objective truly be considered secured and held by the Imperium if the only unit that was on it was a unit of conscripts, was a penal battalion? Probably not. The Imperium or the War Master would probably think that they need to get a bit more over there to make sure that objective is truly theirs. It also makes sense from a balance point of view, considering how big these units are. The ability to just like bum rush them onto objectives last minute would be too much. So it's good from a fluff perspective, and it's fair from a gameplay perspective. Now they also have the Militia keyword, which feeds into the whole Militia special rules about you can't rally if you're below half strength and all this kind of stuff. The reality is you're very unlikely to actually feel that the Militia squads have the Militia special rule because of their unique special rules, expendable. This is where that bomb collar thing comes back in here. The opposing player never gains victory points for removing a unit that includes any models with the special rule as casualties. However, if a unit that includes any models with the special rule fails a morale check, it does not fall back, but instead all models in the unit are removed from play as casualties immediately. Oh, I'm Militia. If I'm below half strength, I can't rally. Nah, you can't rally because you're all dead. The moment you fail any morale check on, at best, Leadership 6. Oh my god. Oh no. Honestly, I love this rule because it is a double-edged sword. Because it is like, okay, the enemy never gets victory points. So let's go, Blood Feud, baby. Let's do it. On the other hand, you can't ever hold any objectives with them. And if the enemy makes you fall back for whatever reason, 25% casualties in like the shooting phase, they just beat you in melee, which of course they're going to do. Everyone dies. There's a reason why the levies are so cheap. There's a reason why they're only 2 points each. They can't fight their way out of a wet paper bag. They can drown you in number of shots, but the moment that the fighting gets tough, these guys start just breaking and fleeing from the field of battle. However, there are ways to mitigate this rule. Specifically, discipline masters. Now, I will be doing a separate deep dive unit review on the discipline masters, But long story short, they are commissars. What happens is you get to use their leadership for your squad, and if you've got provenances like warrior elite, that will make them leadership 9, and essentially they can carry out some summary executions and you can re-roll your leadership. So whilst they start off at leadership 6 at best, they can actually get to leadership 9 re-rollable fairly easily. That is how you can manage the expendable rule. Of course, it only really helps you manage it from a shooting perspective. The moment you get into melee and the enemy just like beats up like 5, 6 or 10 of you, you will be looking for a double 1 even on a re-rollable to try and stick around.
Reporting for duty, sir!
Keep you around for shooting morale tests, but typically they don't really help you at all for melee morale tests. But hey, considering that the discipline masters are only 20 points, if you took a full squad of 50 of these guys with a discipline master, it's only going to cost you 120. So it makes sense that they're not like super sticky, but you at least have some mechanic to try and keep the levies around a bit longer. And as expendable as these guys are, unless you're running the Endless Horde provenance, which means they can potentially come back, they can be endlessly recycled. Unless you're running something like that, I would say that Discipline Masters are a mandatory addition to this squad in a normal game. We do have another special rule here, Strength in Numbers. This is like your old platoon system if you played 40k back in the day. When a unit that is composed entirely of models of the special is selected as Troops Choice, then up to 3 such units may be selected to fill that Troop Choice slot instead of only 1. That's right, you could take 3 squads of 50 of these guys and it would only use up 1 Troops Choice on the Force Organization chart. Yes. Yes, in theory, in a 3,000 point game, if you maxed out on Strength and Numbers levies, you would be able to take 900 conscripts. I am trying to work towards that list. It might take a while. There are a few other bits to this special rule, but none of them are particularly bad. They're not disadvantages. It's just dictate some of the ways that they interact with game mechanics like reserves. So they all have to go in reserves or they all get deployed on the board. It's also important that they don't have to be identical units, so you could have a squad of 50, a squad of 30, a squad of 40, all under Strength and Numbers, all in the same platoon. And also, it's important to note that each of the separate blobs, even though they're under the same troop choice, can have their own Discipline Master and Militia Medicae assigned to it. So it's just based, all of this is just a bit of rules, legalese, defining how taking 3 units under 1 troop choice interact with other parts of the game. So it's not much to really worry about. The main focus, of course, is I get to take 3 blobs as one troop choice. What I really like about the Strength and Numbers rule is it's not actually unique to the Levy squads. You could also get Strength in Numbers on the regular Imperialis Militia infantry squads. Now, the reason I like this is because these guys, you could take 3 of them under 1 troops choice. That gives like 60 fairly competent bodies. Then you can take 3 of these guys under 1 troop choice, and that'll give you just a core of just meat to throw at the enemy. But that still leaves you 4 troop choices available for your frankly good infantry, which is your Militia Grenadier squads. These guys don't have Strength in Numbers, so you can only take 1 of them per troop choice. Now, they can be taken in squads of up to 20, but typically you take them in squads of 10 because you don't get any extra special weapons for taking them in big blobs. So what I quite like to do, and what I have done, is I've taken a bunch of levies under like 1 troop choice, and then I've rounded out the rest of my army with Militia Grenadiers. That way I get both quantity and quality. If you're just going to be spamming militia levy squads and stuff. The main advantage for this is, of course, just the sheer amount of numbers you can throw onto the table. So it's good for being able to take a balanced force, and it's good for just embracing the endless waves of humanity. Now that just about covers everything that we've got on the Levy Squad's unit entry, but I just want to drop a few more little bits into this video regarding like tactics and the way you want to think about these guys on the tabletop. The first thing I want to say about levies is you should expect them to disappear very quickly. One thing that I noticed when I was playing my games with them is when you're moving that brick of 50 up, it can almost lull you, the owner, into a false sense of security because it just looks like there's so many there. And especially coming over from 40k, 50 bodies in one place is a lot of manpower. But they just disappear. They go very, very quickly between your terrible morale, meaning expendable, just and they go, or the moment anyone gets into melee with them, they just go. So be prepared when you're moving these militia squads up. If you've only got like one line of infantry at the front and it's your militia, that's not secure. Those militia blobs will disappear, and then your valuable assets behind, like your tanks, will definitely be exposed. That one was a bit of a negative point. Let's look at a positive point now. Levy squads are dangerous. Woe betide the enemy that underestimates them. The legionary who scoffs at the lasgun has not charged across open field against 10,000 of them. I've played a few games with these boys now, and in both cases, my opponents remarked that they were losing their Marines to the Levy squads at a
reporting for duty, sir.
Alarming rate, at a regular rate. Don't expect them to be taken out contempt of dreadnoughts. They physically can't wound them. But at the end of the day, Horus Heresy is a game where Marines have got one wound and typically they've got a 3+ save. Whether you're a tactical Marine or an Imperial Fist, Warder Breach or whatever it is, you're one wound with a 3+ save. And if you throw enough dice at those Marines, they will go down. And any Marine that dies to a militia levy squad is a point of pride for you as the militia player, and a stain on the honor of the Astartes. Finally, I want to talk about how you would really deploy and use these guys on the tabletop. For me, there's two main ways. Firstly, the expendable screen. Very, very obvious, typical way that you're probably going to end up using them. These guys go in the first wave. Then behind that, you would put your actually good troops, like your grenadiers, whether they're mounted in transports, if you've gone down the one where they can take rhinos and stuff, or just your regular militia infantry squads. Levies go up front. They eat the bullets first. Most importantly, if your opponent's got deep strikers, they deep strike down, they hit the levies die, but then you get to shoot them now that they're out there and exposed. So an expendable screen, very much how you would think to use them and very much how you should be using them. The other way is to protect your backfield. If you know you're going to be advancing on the enemy and that there's a potential risk for gaps to open up in your back line, you want to try and avoid that. So having a single levy squad that's quite well spread out can be very effective, because if people do end up deep striking down behind you, it's a unit that they might risk scattering onto, at which point potential mishaps could happen. It's also if they do manage to deep strike behind, they get that direct hit or whatever, they deep strike behind, then there's a screen between them, and especially if they're a melee deep striker, them getting into your sort of backfield units, like where your Lord Marshal might be, and where your artillery might be, and of course where your tanks might be as well. Long story short, they're a screening unit. Whether screening up front, going in first, dying first, or screening at the back, trying to protect you from deep strikers, you want to be thinking of them in those ways in 99% of the games that you play. Oh, and one last point to address. How many levies should you take? A, in your army, and B, in their squads. Well, to answer that second one first, I like 50-man blobs. There are some more experienced Heresy players that think that big levy squads are a bit of a waste. You're just essentially having these bigger blobs that are just all going to die anyway. I can see the wisdom of that, But for me, from a vibes point of view, from a flavor point of view, if you've got a unit that can take 50 guys, that is quite unique. So you should lean into that. Also, if you're only taking like 20-man squads of levies, yeah, it's cheap, but they're not line. At that point, for me, I'd rather take the militia infantry squad. I would. I think levies are clearly designed to be taken in big blobs. They're designed to be expendable, and I wouldn't take loads of 50-man blobs. At max, I would probably take 3 in an army. 3 50-manners with a discipline master in each one under 1 troop choice would be the absolute maximum that I would take. I would probably, in most of my lists, take 2 of them. 2 50-man blobs with discipline masters comes in at 240 points. It's less than 10% of your 3,000 point army. It gets you 100 bodies. It gets you all of the screening that you could possibly want. And there's so many points left over that you can get all of the good infantry, artillery, and tanks that you could possibly want. Just knowing that you're starting from a foundation of, I have 100 bodies. So bringing all of this together, I absolutely love the Levy squads. I think they are such a key component to the vibes of the militia, and they're such a unique unit within the game of Horus Heresy. Just the pure, unadulterated numbers and mass that you can throw at the enemy. I have to say that this might be my favorite unit in the militia. It's the unit that really made me fall in love with the army. A big part of that is I am an infantry horde player at heart, and this really does lean into that. Another huge part of it is, as someone who's coming over to Heresy from 40k, it really is like coming home seeing a unit like this. 40k is a good game, and it has done a lot for balancing the game and for making Warhammer and tabletop games incredibly mainstream. But there have been some things that have been lost along the way. There has been some flavour that's been lost along the way. And seeing these Imperialis militia levy squads just feels so right. It feels so good. And if you're an old grognardy player like me, seeing these levy squads in all of their glory is actually awesome. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Are you an Imperialis militia player? Do you take levy squads? And if so, what is the way that you have found them to be most effective? And if you don't take them, what are you taking instead? If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to go ahead and smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.